In the bridge section, you have a slightly different right-hand technique. So instead of the regular kind of alternating groove there, you've got this kind of figure. So it's thumb, index finger, and then middle and ring are played at the same time. Okay. It's a nice little groove to get used to. Okay. So you might just want to practice that actually just on its own. Thumb on the bass, index finger on the third, and middle and ring on the top two strings. So you got, and then it's the same thing, but the thumb moves across to the fifth string. So you've got, okay, and that's it really. It's very doable, but it just takes a minute to think about what's going on, especially with these chords. So let me show you what the chords are first. It starts with a, it's all over D, but you've got these triptych of 12s on the top three strings, and then it's like an E minor, and then a D chord there. First finger's playing the top two strings, and the second finger is playing the third string at the 11th fret. Okay, so good. Okay, you might know that from playing like D minor 7 or something like that, or a slimmed down version of F. Okay, so kind of E minor with those. I like to use those. I mean, some people might like that, but that doesn't suit my playing for this piece. You'll notice there's a connecting finger now. The second finger moves back a fret, which is helpful. Okay, you could move down like that. I tend to just go to an A chord with a classic D shape up at the 9th and 10th frets. So that's the third chord in this series. Then it moves down to a G, 2 frets lower. Okay, and then same chord like the D chord, but at the 5th fret for A. Slide it down 2 frets. You've got your G, and then finally D. Okay, so you need to be really confident about that series of shapes first before sticking in the right hand, I'd say, or the picking hand. So it's kind of a nice progression just to play in its own right, really. It's a little study on its own. A, G. Okay, right. If you can remember back to that right hand technique, well, now we're looking at, and then when the thumb moves to the A string, you change chord. The top 3 strings are all doing the same. It's always index and then those two are together. A bit like a kind of Jerry Reed claw technique. Just playing a D on the 4th string because it sort of sits in the groove. You'll feel it once you play it in time. Then A to G. So you know where you are, I'm going to play this in a groove, so something like that. Starts on beat 1, 3, 4. And that's it, that's the bridge. If you're feeling that you want to kind of take a little further, you could just experiment with some other chords, I guess. Something like that, you know. You know, you could turn it into a kind of full-on Freebird chordal guitar solo halfway through. Whatever takes your fancy and feels good, but that's kind of what I do. Occasionally I branch into that kind of C thing, But then after that, you're back to not the first part of Promise of Spring, but when it changes to G. So after you play this a couple of times, or whenever it feels good, you're into the G part. Sometimes I'll repeat that, then you're into F. Speed up a little bit. I suppose with that bridge, whilst I'm here at this speed, I'll show you the speed you're looking like. So it's all very light and everything, don't play too hard. And then to finish off the piece, it's kind of like the intro. So a little figure there. And then I like the hovering on the A7 and then play some kind of riff. That kind of thing. And then just kind of let it just drift out on its own. And I like to change the dynamic just by maybe playing with the flesh of my thumb as opposed to the nail. It's super mellow, super warm, nothing too heavy. Earlier on I talked about the volume between the backing, the middle parts and the melody, and it gives that kind of impression as if, you know, there's 2, 3 or 4 guitar players playing at the same time. You know, it's just that control about over the dynamic of each finger is kind of cool. You know, you could take an exercise like just playing that D chord. Okay, there are 4 notes there. And you can just loop them like this. You might enjoy this. So now you're going to play the thumb as loudly as you can, but the other fingers as quietly as possible. So really focusing on that thumb and underplaying the others and talking at the same time. Next part, the index finger is playing the 3rd string. You want that to be at volume 10 and the others to be at volume 1. Forces you to think about that digit. Next is middle finger on the 2nd string. And finally the ring finger on the 1st string. There's a separate exercise you could do, try and run them into each other. So it's thumb, index, middle, ring, back, middle, index, thumb. After which point it will be time for a cup of tea.